It's podcasting time. Glenn Power, PowerWorks Garage is the PowerWorks podcast. And a big hello to all of our friends listening in on 100.3 FM in Dubai. It's great to have you along for the ride. WhatsApp in your questions, queries. We'll get to them right here on the podcast, and you'll hear it on 100.3. It's that simple. Glenn, how are you doing, man?
Good.
Yeah,
good. Friday, so
yeah.
Tired.
You know what? Every week is a tiring week, I find. It's just...
Summer's hanging on.
Stuff's hanging on.
Teasers us in the evening, and then the next morning you get up and it's like summer's dumped you in the rainforest.
Although, depending on where you're listening to us from, you might be saying, summer's not hanging on, boys. Summer has come, it's gone, and winter is staring me in the face, and I'm not happy about it.
We'll swap you.
So, I want to kick off the show with a little bit of a car review from Joey WooWu. Now, this is an interesting one because I want to preface this. So, Joey WooWu happens to be my brother. Joey WooWu, master mechanic, who is now working in the energy industry. And, you know, when you think about someone who's worked in the car industry for an awfully long time and, you know, knows his way around a spanner or two.
Yeah.
You know, you figure when they review something that it's going to, you know, there's going to be some technical stuff involved and whatever. And that's not a Joey WooWu automotive review.
No.
So he's currently driving. And so the deal is, because he's working in the energy sector, he periodically has to go on site. And when he's going on site to do whatever he is doing, they rent him a car. And usually it's for a month. So he gets all sorts of new vehicles to try out for a month. And he will send in a variety of reviews. And in the 3 micro reviews that he has sent of different parts of this current car, which is his favorite so far, and it's a Volkswagen Passat. I couldn't tell you if it is the newest model. I couldn't actually tell you what model it is because he hasn't told us what, you know, it's Passat, but what trim group is he driving? I figure it's medium of the road to high end because it's a rental and they're not putting the bare bones machine out there.
Yeah. The Passat was always, even the base spec, was always a bit of a flagship car, so it was always well equipped.
And he's saying of all the vehicles he's driven so far, he's been driving some GM products. He's got the Mazdas, which he really liked, and the list goes on. He says this is by and far the best vehicle he's driven. And so
flying the flag.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, there you go. And you know, he did own the Powder Blue Rabbit at one point in his life. He was that guy. So
things have changed. Things have changed since those days.
Now he's driving the grandpa car.
Yeah.
But so first of all, what's the first thing he fires in on? Mostly because he's just throwing a little bit of pie in your face.
Yeah.
He's like, first thing is like, chrome. Look at this chrome. This beautiful. It's, you know, black Passat.
You've already said it's the grandpa car.
Yeah, chrome trim. So he's loving that. He then proceeds to give a I'm driving review. So I don't know exactly how he's doing those, but
I'm sure he's clipping his phone to
yeah
put something on him, and he's got both hands on the
for
controls
sure
at all times. 100%.
So first of all, the first thing he notices about this vehicle, so if you know, it's all the key things. Excellent maneuverability of the Passat because he can dodge raccoons.
Well,
so
last thing you're going to do is hit a raccoon, damage your car.
It's exactly. So excellent maneuverability. It's got a great sunroof. Now he's in North America. It's getting a little cool. I guess he likes to, you know, have the wind blowing in what little hair he has. I don't know. So
like long drives though, right?
Yeah.
So fresh air.
Hour and a half. He's doing an hour and a half commute each way.
Fresh air is keeping you away.
Zippy, as he said, especially when you're dodging raccoons, but it's nice and zippy on the highway. He's really enamored. That's a great word, isn't it? How about you use that for Friday? I'm enamored with the way this is really good one. My students will, you know, it's a little pause here. My students who I teach public speaking to would just have had a field day with me using that word. Sir, whoever uses that word in a sentence, because I'm constantly getting on them about words they use in sentences that you might write.
Nothing wrong with having a good vocab. Very eloquent.
So he's enamored, absolutely enamored with the fact that it's got that sunroof. That really got him going.
It's surprising.
Yeah, he's got a great stereo. He liked that, and we could hear it in the background. So how he gives me these reviews is through WhatsApp typically. So he loves the stereo. And he showed the console. It looked pretty nice at night. It was all lit up. It was great. His other thing that he loves, and I think he's become a lazy driver, but he is a grandpa, right? So is he is absolutely smitten, enamored and smitten.
We're going all out.
We're going all out with lane assist.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
It's like, what?
Once you've had it, and obviously, I mean, the road that Joey's on in the videos he sends, it looks like it's 4,000 miles straight in one direction.
Pretty much, it's a toll road. It just drives. There's no one on it.
And you will soon get used to having it.
Yeah.
And I've driven a few cars for extended periods with it, and with the adaptive cruise control and everything else, where it'll slow down to the car in front, even to a stop, and then go with them, and even round roundabouts and things, and it's very, very easy to get used to.
Yeah. So this is a must for him now. Lane assist. If no lane assist, no go on that vehicle. Yeah. So I thought, well, it's amazing how quick we get rid of all these, skills of keeping centered in your lane.
It's I remember having maybe 10, 12 cars sat in the compound for our fleet department in VW in the UK. They've been spec'd without cruise control, and the fleet company wouldn't take them.
There you go.
Because the drivers that were driving them were using them on the motorway.
Yeah.
They wanted cruise control.
I get that. Yeah.
So it's kind of 2022's cruise control now, lane assist, and it's been around. Yeah. Very, very well put together, being around for 6-7 years now. Yeah. It's around a lot longer than that. It didn't always work. But
the things we need now, we've got lane assist, backup cameras. I think even the lowest spec car these days has a backup camera in it.
Yeah, because it's literally just a lens and a couple of wires, because it's almost all, you've got things like Nissan Sunnies and things like that are always going to be bog standard aimed at rental companies sort of thing. But almost all cars now are coming with a screen, touch screen, and Apple or Android Connect. So
simple. He had a complaint. He did have one complaint. He didn't the other thing that he was just over the roof with gas mileage. He's saying the
ridiculous economy.
I know. I'm looking at this and I'm going, and he's figuring it's, so he hasn't looked under the hood to give me the specs of the vehicle, but he's figuring, it's a pretty zippy car. He says, I think it's got a turbo in it.
Really 2-liter turbo.
Yeah. And he said, this thing is getting ridiculous gas mileage. And I thought, it's not a hybrid. It's just well-tuned, well-designed engine.
It's just, and it is operating in a perfect climate as well.
Yeah, yeah. And so he's laughing. He's saying, he says, I still got 700 kilometers left on the tank.
It's got nearly 1,000 out of it.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And the other thing is with it, it's a massive car, really.
Yeah.
So it's a huge car, Passat, and they've got a big tank. They're quite light for the size, relative to the size, and if you can get 1,000 kilometers out of a tank of fuel,
that's pretty nice.
Happy days.
Yeah. So he's really happy with that. He did have a complaint, and I thought, okay, the mirrors. And he says, and of course he used the technical term, because he said the mirrors are a little small. He's one of those convexy thingies in the corner. I love that. I loved his mechanic technical term, but he's...
Does Joe just like them because they're shiny? Joey, do you just like those convex extra mirrors because they're shiny? I mean, I imagine him having like an old Vespa or his old scooter with like 400 mirrors on it.
So I don't know if that's a North American thing, actually, because when I was back in Canada and the US in the summer, pretty much every rental we had industry, factory installed wide angle mirror pieces, convex mirror.
I really can't get on with them.
Yeah. So I thought that's American, and again, to me, it's just like, are you doing a shoulder check? Like it's, you look in the mirror and then you give it a little shoulder check and away you go.
It's like Johnny's just said, it's not even holding the wheel because it's got lane assist on. Set the cruise, listening to stereo.
It's got Kim Mitchell playing.
She's not moving.
Patio lantern.
She's in the back seat at some point.
I'm looking forward to when it gets a little bit cooler, and then he warms up his lunch on the dash. So then he gives us a review of the window defogger, and the heat that it can generate.
It won't be long.
Yeah. So I thought that was an interesting one, and I'm curious, and I'll have to send him a note. Do the mirrors also work? Are they synced with the high beam, whatever we call it, the high beam light reflectors?
Oh yeah, I don't know. I couldn't tell from the picture whether it had the chromatic.
No, chromatic. That's what we're called. There we go. See, that's the mechanic.
But they
I know I'm sure
the rear view will be electronic.
But
I'm sure.
And it's the vehicles when you've got the driver's side and the passenger side mirrors. The vehicles that don't have chromatic effect on those, it's like, why have you done it for my rear view mirror? And then I've got a whole issue of getting blinded.
Those mirror glasses are expensive.
Yeah.
Super expensive. You know, we've never ever had a customer that I can think of that's had one that, because they tend to bleed and then they'll go brown or they'll be permanently blue. So, but we've never replaced one like for like because it's 1,500 dirhams.
So no one wants to spend that.
Yeah, so most people don't spend them.
Yeah.
But they're very, very good when they work. And again, when you've had one in your car that works, it's very hard to go back.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially those sort of trips that Joey's doing clearly in the dark at night.
Yeah.
You're going to get somebody raining up behind you and the lights are going to be on them. It's noticeable.
Yeah.
And especially when you're not concentrating on the road because you've got lane assist on.
Yeah.
People looking around.
He's probably,
it's noticeable. Might wake you up from your snooze.
He's reading the Toronto Sun.
Yeah.
Looking at the Sunshine Girl there on page 2.
You get page 2 there.
Yeah. So otherwise he likes the car. He said, yeah, I'll give you a more comprehensive review. But his initial review is, this is a good car. And he'd own it. He's parking it front and center in the driveway.
It's weird, the Passat. It's like, it's as a saloon. I remember I started at VW when I was a kid, and I'd had a Polo as my first car, and I always loved the Mark II Golf. So I love VWs because of those cars.
Yeah.
My grandfather, who was the car nut in the family, had always liked his bikes, but his cars were always Japanese, Hondas, Mitsubishis, that sort of stuff. So I got it from my own, looking at the front of Max Power magazine and Redline magazine when I was a kid. And I remember joining and being like, always excited to work on a Golf. But all the guys that had been there for a long time, they're all about the Passat. And that was like the one, and even the manufacturer, even head office in Northern Kingdom in the UK, it's always about, the Passat was always a big deal.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of, nobody wants a saloon car anymore. So, don't really know what's happened to it. You never hear any updates of it. And like that one Joey's got, it probably is, if at most, a year old. So it is the current model. But you don't hear about it. Like, the Arteon is a fantastic looking car. Previous to that, the Passat CC, fantastic looking car. Really, really nice trim levels. Everything was good to look at. But nobody wants to buy a saloon car anymore.
It's interesting, isn't it?
And it's like, well, they've just nailed it with this Arteon, and then they're going to stop and they're going to give us. Everybody wants an SUV, So it's the Passat's a weird one. I mean, I don't know what the sales reps drive now.
I don't know. That's a super interesting question, isn't it?
Like in the UK, people will be driving up and down their route in a car. And it was always a diesel saloon.
Yeah.
They didn't have you might get the odd one that would have an estate car or an Avant or a shooting brake, whatever you want to call it.
That's what we're thinking here. I wonder if Joey WooWu's awake. He'd kill me, but I wonder if he's awake.
Well, I don't know what the time difference is. What is it? 8 hours?
8 hours?
So it's only 1 a.m, James.
Well, she's not going to be out.
Could be up reviewing the Passat.
Yeah. Here's an interesting one. So we'll get more on this Passat, but a saloon car, where do they fit into the whole ecosystem of automobiles that we want to buy? And
just don't. The manufacturers say they don't fit in, which must come from buying trends.
I guess. But I think the buying trends, and this is the crazy thing, I really think these buying trends are manufactured by the manufacturers because they're only making sport utility vehicles, and people want to have, and quite frankly, sport utility vehicles are ugly. Like,
yeah, on the whole.
on the whole, although, I'm going to eat my words, because yesterday as I was walking in the parking lot and heading to, uncover the Jeep, because when you got no windows, you got to put cover on it everywhere, or else
Stray cats and all
stray
that.
cats. I came out of the house the other day. I hadn't put the cover on at night. There's a cat on the roof, and all I'm thinking, I hope it did make home inside.
Yeah, it's not marked its territory, is it?
No, it didn't. It didn't.
Oh,
Thank
gosh.
goodness. Oh. But anyway, I'm coming out, getting ready to take the cover off, and I'm walking by a Volkswagen Touareg, and clearly a very new one.
New ones are really nice.
And I'm looking at it because what caught my attention is I thought it was an Audi. It really had more of the Audi lines on it, and I had to take a second look. And what caught my attention was it's huge.
I overtook a car, possibly when I shouldn't have, just to get behind a new one the other day. It was really, really like a nice sort of cream colour, like a flat cream, not metallic. It was a
Beautiful vehicle.
very nice car, yeah.
I looked at that and I said, I don't know these.
Yeah, I like the brand is in the middle at the back. The model name, is in the middle at the back, and it looks. I prefer it to the Cayenne.
It looks really wide, and I guess that it's on the same platform up there.
Yeah.
So really, it just struck me as being so big. So I thought, wow,
They are big though, aren't they?
Nice,
I mean, if you look at the Tiguan now. Some markets they do a Tiguan. I think they call it an L or an XL, where they have 7 seats in the Tiguan.
That's a push.
The old Touareg, well, it isn't though.
Oh, okay.
They're so big, and the old Touareg you couldn't get 7 seats in.
Yeah.
And the one that I have, which is the second gen one, no way. And the Tiguan, cars have just gone. Hatchbacks and saloons started to do it, and now they're dying out. SUVs are now doing it, where they're getting bigger every time.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see. I mean, I don't particularly have any aspiration to own a saloon car, and I understand that it's possibly just something that's no longer fashionable. Horse and cart was fashionable at one point. We moved on, haven't we? But I think it's such a shame because there are some good saloons out there, and like you say, a lot of the SUVs are just dog ugly. I mean, we've mentioned them. There's like these things, the Cross Tour, and like the Toyota.
Hold on. I like the Honda Cross Tour.
The Toyota did one that's really weird.
It didn't last.
It was something I saw yesterday. I said to DJ, "What do you think to that mess?" Actually, abomination was the word I used. The Toyota Raze, R-A-Z-E, to make it sound cool to the kids, I assume.
Yeah.
Honestly, possibly. Do you know when Lego make it? So you go and buy like a Bugatti Veyron in a Lego kit, but it's not the big one. It's like the small one that you can fit in your hand.
Yeah.
So it's just blocky and does not look. It looks like a Veyron would have looked on a Mega Drive. Oh no, on an Atari or a Commodore. That's what this Raze looked like. Looked like somebody had designed a car, sent it to the factory, but they'd sent it in low res, and then they built it in low res.
Yeah. They're catering to a very particular market, and someone likes those.
But you know by looking at the car what it's going to feel like inside, what it's going to smell like inside, synthetic.
Isn't that the worst? It's just
a dog ugly car, and I don't get it. I have no idea who that. Well, I don't know who that's aimed at. Well, what's the reason for buying that? Just buy the Yaris.
Yeah.
I just don't get that. But yeah, there's a lot of making for making's sake, it seems, with that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Let's try.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can do here. We've still got leftover parts, and we've still got.
Yeah. One thing I can say is VW T-Roc, which is like their entry level car at the minute here. So I don't think we get the Polo anymore, do we?
No.
So T-Roc is probably their entry level, other than the bog standard trim level Golf.
T-Roc's got the nice name though.
Yeah, it does have a decent name, but unless it's the top spec, sporty, XL, GT, this, that, and the other, they look awful. The wheels are too narrow, they're too small.
I don't see too many of them around. Not at least not in the neighborhood, and not where I'm driving. So I've seen a few, but I haven't.
No, I've seen a few that have got rental car company stickers in the back.
Ah, okay.
But the ones that you see on the road that look good, there was a red one the other day, and it had all nice gloss black trims on it, and it had this weird sort of decal on the rear, on the C pillar. But they look good in top trim,
right?
But otherwise, it's kind of,
and the car's got to look good. Even if you're using it for sales and it's a company car, you still want it to look nice when you rock up somewhere. And if you're going to drive it for 2-3 years, you want it to look good for 2-3 years.
You'd think so, but
you don't think people care?
If these are entry level, right, they're aimed at, you would think. So you mentioned the example, Joey used to have a Rabbit.
Yeah.
When he was younger.
Yeah.
He's now loving a Passat. The guy that Joey that had the Rabbit was not about a Passat at that age.
No.
But now at the age that he's at, he's about the Passat. So you'd think that these cars are aimed at the younger generation to then get them so that, okay, we'll go from this and then we'll graduate, we'll get a job and maybe go for a Tiguan. And we'll graduate on from that into starting a family, we'll get a Touareg. And maybe that's how the brand and VW see it, and that's how, but you've got kids who kind of this age group, do they really aspire to own a car anymore? Do they aspire and it's seen almost.
So I got one son who doesn't have a driver's license.
Yeah.
He had it, and then he had his learners and this, and all he basically had to do was go and do the test, and during COVID it lapsed, and so he doesn't have a driver's license. I got the other one who would like a car, can't really afford a car at this point, and he'll house sit for someone and they'll say, hey, you can use the car, or he'll do a rental when he needs stuff.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really talk about the car he would like to own. Like, it's not, I remember when I was in high school and all that stuff, and cars are all you're thinking is awesome.
Yeah.
Have a car. There was always the cars you wanted to own. I'm not hearing that from the young guys anymore. It's not, oh yeah, I want to have that Volkswagen, or I want to get that GM product, or at least not the people I'm hanging around with. They're not talking about that.
No.
And so I don't know if that's widespread. I have to do the survey, I guess. But I'm not hearing that aspiration anymore.
I don't see whether it's hard to see whether it's like a smoking cigarettes kind of thing, which has just become socially accepted that that's ridiculous and stupid for you to do.
Yeah.
Or whether it's the fact that because you can no longer work on vehicles on the driveway. So I got my love of cars from my granddad. There's no doubt about it. But all of my friends had the same from their dads or granddads. So we were all sort of tinkering around with cars. If I wanted to instill that, and I definitely do not want to do it, but if I wanted to instill that same passion in my two daughters, I can't do that at home. Because you can't even change a light bulb at home anymore.
Yeah.
You can't check the oil. You can't do these things.
That blows my mind every time we talk about this, every show. That really just...
you can't, not that you can't, obviously I could, but it's not easy or safe. And it probably wasn't safe then, but there's different standards, I guess. But my point is it because it's sort of died out, that passing on of the love of a car? Is that what it is? Or is it a social thing where it's like they're polluting?
Yeah.
All the raw materials are coming from war-torn countries increasingly.
Just the CO2 gas.
They're just killing the planet.
Yeah.
What's the deal? And then there's also this whole social movement of it's not cool to show what you've got kind of attitude of the car used to be a bit of an extension of your personality. Yeah. People used to be all free of, they'll go and spend loads of money on putting silly stickers and spoilers on it and stuff like that. But you don't, does that even happen anymore? What's that all about? Like, so it's hard to say, and I don't know.
Interesting one. I'm going to jump in here for a second. I hear interesting one. Just again, someone a little bit closer to our vintage. My cousin Richard Bilo, Calgary.
Yeah.
The detail guy. We just posted a picture. I guess he had a fairly nice Porsche that he sold, and it's gone now. So he's very happy about that. But he had his daily drive sitting beside a Lambo, and he said, you know what? I'll still stick with the Volvo. He's got a Volvo estate, a V70. It's a station wagon or an estate car. He loves it. He says, this is the vehicle. Any day I'll stick with the Volvo.
Well, take the Lambo, sell it and buy 3. I don't know. I
thought that was interesting.
It is,
and it's the utility. You can pull the trailer, you can pull the boat, you can pull the
polar opposites.
Yeah,
you could not get any further away from the Lamborghini than you can with Volvo, right?
And this is a guy who's around. Look, he's got the Porsche, he's got the pickup, that's his go-to drive. I thought, okay.
Yeah, but he's around those cars all the time.
All day long.
Desensitized to it.
Yeah.
All day long.
So it's,
We get the similar thing here. Like, I used to love the idea of maybe one day I'll buy myself a Porsche.
Yeah.
Don't think I would now. Not because I don't like them.
Yeah.
But because the shine's gone off them, because I see them all the time.
Yeah.
They're no longer sort of rare. The other day there was 8 of them.
It's like everyone's got one.
Yeah. And I guess 36, 10 years time, probably not going to have enough money to buy one, and by that point it looks like a middle-life crisis. So
Colin's driving around in the Armada now.
Yeah.
I'm on the road yesterday, so I'm coming out of Murdiff, make a left, heading up towards the 611, and right in front of me is a brand new Armada, which I didn't realize they were still making Armadas.
with the rounded sort of patrol lights on it and stuff.
And I had to take 3 looks to figure out. I mean, it said Armada, and I'm thinking, okay, someone just messed around with the badging because it really did look patrol-like.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe it's from a different market. We've had a black one come in here, and when the customer called me to say I've got a problem with the Armada, they couldn't open the tailgate. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Came in and I was like, it's patrol. So I don't know. Maybe it's from a different market and they badge them differently.
Okay. That's interesting.
Those Armadas, they've got a bit of charm about them because of how big and ugly and unnecessary they
It
are.
reminds me of the old Durangos.
Yeah,
So
same thing. Yeah,
big, ugly. And those Durangos were great off road, except the front end was a little bit too long, so you were always taking out the radiator.
Yeah,
but
yeah, they're not. They were one of the examples of cars that kill the planet.
There we go. Exactly. Yeah. One Power, by the way, is who I'm talking to. My name is James Pikeway. This is the PowerWorks podcast. You sent me a further video or some images of, again, another Tesla owner doing more Tesla upgrades.
Yeah, we got another one in for that. Yeah, we're starting to get a bit of a name for ourselves for it.
I started doing a little bit of research because I thought, is this, I never think of mods on Teslas. And apparently this is a big market. I mean, not just here, but Tesla owners want to do brakes, seem to be the big one, and other things. Like there's a lot of modifications now that you can, aftermarket mods you can do on a Tesla.
Yeah.
I was surprised.
We just search for them now because it was...
The one that you sent me, you've done brakes before on one and put, I guess, larger brakes.
Yeah, that's right. Drilled and grooved as well, yeah.
And so is that to help it stop faster, or is that just vanity?
Probably both.
Okay.
To be fair, the brakes that we put on it were... On the first one we did, the guy was going to use the car and did use the car on the track.
Okay.
The second one we did was a bit of I want to do that to mine, but never used it on the track. So you would never have got the brakes hot enough for them to be effective. In fact, you'd probably made the brake less effective than it was if you'd have left it standard, to be fair, by using it on the street. But the Model Y that was in this time was so it had big off-road tyres on it already, and then we were lifting it. We put a lift on it for 1.5 inches. We backed it up to another one.
Yeah, I saw that.
You could see there's a slight difference in that.
And what was it? Was just wants to look higher.
I'm assuming it's.
Did he put new tires on as well?
Yeah. So it had off-road sand tyres on it.
Okay.
But this car has no approach angle on the front bumper. So taking it off-road into the sand will be a disaster for the front bumper. The battery is in the bottom of the car.
Right. Getting
this thing teetering on a rock or a stump of a tree is $100,000 mistake.
Yikes.
Yeah. So I don't think it's going to get used off-road, to be fair. This was a spec'd up Model Y that the guy had waited for months for, picked it up, and his lift kit was already here. So we lifted it. Deals were told. It's going to come back in 1,000 kilometres for us to make sure everything's still tight, because obviously we've done a lot of work on that to do it. But one of the things about the Teslas, which me and DJ, so when they come in, only me and DJ will work on them because we're suitably qualified to do it. We enjoy working on them because they're all new, relatively new.
Yeah. It's
not going to be the same in a few years' time when they're old and they're starting to corrode and rust and people have had a go at this and that and bent this and bent that. Yeah. There's some things on them where you look at them, and being from VW, both of us, DJ moved on to Audi, but it's the same group. You look at them and think, that's not right, that won't last. And then you think to yourself, which we always do, what would one of our lads do in this case, and what would someone else's guys do in another workshop that maybe don't have the same level of skill we've got? And you just think these are going to get broken and there's going to be some real disasters. Mm-hmm. So there's things like, if you have a nut going through two components with a bolt going through it,
it sounds pretty
to tighten them up. Yeah. So where the thread of the bolt is exposed after the nut's gone on it, you don't want that facing forwards in the direction of travel because you don't want road spray.
Yeah, makes sense.
Sand, grit, getting onto the thread so then you can't undo it.
Absolutely makes sense.
Facing on the Tesla.
They're facing, so they're going to get all the debris on it?
And not always. Some of them are one way, some of them are
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Like that's auto design 101.
Yeah. So we've actually...
So what do? Cover them then? Put a little cover on it?
We just put them the other way around. We put it back together.
Do you think that that's just an error at assembly? That someone hasn't been thinking?
There is... Had it been consistent... So to be fair, the Model Y and the Model 3s that we've had, there wasn't that much difference with the setups. Very little difference with the setups. And that's a very, very clever way to build cars.
Yeah. That means you can run 4 or 5 different things on the same line. Yeah. There you go.
So very clever way to build cars. And had they all been consistently incorrect, and it's our opinion based on what we're used to, had they all been inconsistently incorrect, we might have said, well, you know what, that's probably to do with the tools that they use for assembly or whatever. But they weren't. There was inconsistency. So it must be down to just whoever's on the line in that position.
You think that would get caught by the quality control guys saying, hold on a second here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how their QCs work, but you would have, I know they'll have electronic, because these have been around for decades. You have a recorded list of everything that you've tightened up, and it just, you go in a methodical order, and it leaves a record that you've torqued it to the right torque setting, and that's possibly only checked. They don't necessarily say.
Interesting.
So I'm saying that, who knows, they might check 1 or 2 every now and again.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah. One of the nice little things that they did, though, which is very unnecessary.
But it's nice.
But it was nice.
This is important. We almost want to give them a drum roll.
Yeah.
Nice thing that Tesla's done.
On the rear damper, the bolts as they come out of the turret at the top, they've got little plastic washers on that are threaded on, so they're only thin, but they're too small to just slide off the bolt.
Okay.
So when you undo the bolts, they don't fall out.
That's a great idea.
Really cool.
That's really good.
So unnecessary.
So unnecessary, but what a great idea.
The only problem with it is when you don't know that and you keep winding it, you get the washer to the end.
Right.
Don't realise it's going to be a problem, and then you can't get it back in.
Yeah.
And they're really tight to wind on. But yeah, that was quite handy.
Yes. So, a couple of years ago when we were talking about Teslas, you hadn't worked on a lot, but a few of the first gens had come through.
Yeah.
And you're kind of, what do I think about these things? What are you thinking now, Teslas?
The only thing I don't have a qualified opinion. We haven't seen 100 of them, and we haven't done any brand specific training. Nor have I spoken to anyone that can say yes to any of those 2 things. But they don't look to me like they're going to last. That's all I think on them. They don't look to me like they're necessarily. They kind of look like they're put together like a mobile phone. You can get a couple of years out of them for the new one coming out, and great.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's just little things. But 20 years ago, they'd never made a car.
Yeah.
But now every 5th or 6th car on the road you see is one.
Yeah.
So they're doing something right, even if it's just a marketing exercise. I just think that, have they got the and it's ultimately down to one man. Does Elon Musk have the desire to see this through for 100 years? Obviously, he won't be around for 100. Well, he probably will be, his name, won't he? So does he have the desire to be around for 100 years as a company making cars, or does he think, well, we're off to Mars in a few years, who cares? It kind of is a bit slapdash like that when you look at them underneath. There's little things that just make you think, ooh. But they are acquiring smart and sensible people, and some of the production and design you would think would be improved by that. I don't know, but from working on VWs and having that training, when you look at one and work on one, as I say, they're new, so it's easy, but they just don't look like they're gonna last. Some of the things I mean, make you question that.
Are you getting any other EVs into the shop?
No, not really. We had a guy stop by with an MG. He just had a puncture in one of his tyres, and that was it. We don't really get any others at all. And there are a few companies out here that are working on them, especially some of the ones that are being sold here without the manufacturer's backup. So
did you ever find out where the electric VWs are? Who's servicing them?
Yeah, there's a couple of companies out here that are doing it, and
because you can't take it to Buddha.
No,
they won't touch it.
No, and you know what? The reason VW, and the same for Mercedes, the EQ Mercedes ones. The reason they're
very sweet, the EQ Mercedes.
You know, the reason they're not sold here is because the manufacturer is not ready. You're not sufficiently happy that they'll survive in the climate. And this is not a cheap car. Yeah. So they can't be buying them back after 6 months by the dozens because they've sold them and they're no good. A lot of people have bought them over the last few months here. There's a lot, again, the IDs and the ID4, the ID6, the Cross.
There's at least 3 ID6s within 300 meters of my place.
Yeah.
And, another one cropped up the other day. Charger out front. It's parked there. Beautiful looking vehicle.
They are nice looking cars.
I keep hoping when I'm out walking the dog that the owner's going to be out so I can have a chat, just hear the story.
Yeah, they are nice cars, but the reason they're not sold here is because the manufacturer hasn't done enough R&D. And I would, with the money you're paying for them, I would probably wait. Yeah. But that's just me. Some people can't wait, and we're not going to get into servicing those. There's a few reasons for that, but the biggest and most important one is just that we have a respect for what, in the VW case, what the brand will try and be doing. The manufacturer is trying to do something in the interest of the customers, because far too often people are happy to say, well, those cars are rubbish.
Right.
And they've not been made very well. Well, they're actually doing due diligence here. And so we have a bit of respect for that, me and DJ, and we'll make sure that we don't touch them until they're sold here. But also, we buy thousands of dirhams of parts every day from VW. Yeah. And we don't want to spoil a relationship with them by giving a good level of service to vehicles that they've not sold.
Yeah.
Which, then stops people buying from them.
Yeah.
So it's just about trying to be mindful of the ecosystem that we're really. We don't have any reason. They don't give us anything for free, and everything we get we pay silly money for compared to if we're at home. But we are in the country we're in, and that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And we're operating and we're doing business in this country, so that's the way that it is. So we just want to be mindful of not doing the wrong thing, and also why would we want to keep people fixed in a VW that hadn't been sold by VW because VW don't think it's going to survive yet.
Yeah. Excellent. Glenn Power, PowerWorks Garage. This is the PowerWorks podcast. My name is James Pikeway. We want to change direction just a little bit.
Yep.
Tire wear. And I say this only because I got a set of tires on one of my vehicles that I have to take a look at the date, because I am going in for the RTA inspection, and I'm wondering.
Nail biting times.
That'll be fun. But I think the tires might be up. And you start noticing things on the ride, and I'm looking at the tires, and it doesn't get a tremendous amount of wear, but then you start following vehicles or start seeing vehicles in front of you. You start noticing the shakes and the shimmies, and you walk by vehicles and you're looking at the tread wear, and it tells a lot of stories.
Yeah.
And I as I start looking at it, it's it's not rocket science here to start figuring out what's going on, but I don't think we pay enough attention to what is being told to us by the tread wear pattern.
No, you can get, if you Google uneven tire wear, I would guess something will come up that will give you some patterns and some descriptions, or you've put something in the notes.
Yeah, I think I did exactly that. Tire wear, and there was probably about 2 million links came up, and I just, this one's called Irregular Tire Wear 101.
Yeah.
And they've got 3 quick images that they're showing stuff, and they're just talking about, okay, well, what's this mean? And I thought, this is amazing, because I've never looked at anything like this. Been driving for years. I don't countless numbers of tires been replaced. Still never pay attention to the wear pattern to say, hey, you know what, you got to get alignment done, or oh, hold on, this is telling me that my shocks aren't working right, or my dampers are gone, or that my stabilizer bars need to be replaced. Like, there's a lot of information here.
Yeah, I mean, what you'll find with tires is look, they're rubber, so they're going to wear out before the road surface does, and they'll wear out quite quickly when there's a problem. So you don't always get a good lot of warning. There's only 8 millimeters of tread on a brand new tire. So in a hot country like this,
that's it
on a brand new tire. Yeah. So in a hot country like this, that will wear out very fast. So if you have a problem, it will quickly escalate to, oh, now we need to fix your tires. So we have this conversation with customers about suspension and steering components. If there's an issue with any of them, you need to understand that, yes, it's not critical to that individual component right now, but your quote of 2,000 dirhams now may become 3,000 in 6 months' time, because it still needs to be fixed and it's worn your tires out.
Yeah.
So we've got to play the economy of what's the best solution here. One of the most overlooked issues with tire wear is always pressure. So
simply making sure it's at where it needs to be.
Yeah.
So not running it at 25, not running it at 41.
Yeah. If you overinflate your tire, it will stretch out at the easiest point, which is always the center. The middle of the tire will then wear out. If you underinflate your tire, it will make it a lot softer on the road, and it will wear out the easiest point, which is where the actual physical rim and the weight of the car is put down, which is on the edges. Yeah. They are the most common, and we'll get a car in. There'll be a car in there now that's got the same issue. The customers that brought the car in will never ever check their tyre pressures, and they'll only get set on service, so they'll wear out on the edge because they're really underinflated. One of the problems you get with that these days is there's a lot of run flat tyres which have the steel sidewalls, which they don't have spare wheels,
which blows my mind as well. No dipsticks and no spare tire in a car. It's like,
yeah. So they can run on these sort of effectively train wheels.
Yeah.
But when the pressure is low, that just cuts through. So then you end up with a tire just completely shredded. So it happens all the time. There are always components on the steering and suspension that wear out. There are, just because by the nature of them and what they do. And as they wear out, you'll start to get things wearing out on the tyres. One side will wear quicker than the other. In the case of a suspension damper failing, we've probably all been past in this country a Toyota Camry taxi, where the back wheels are bouncing up and down on the road as they're driving. That's because the damper's not doing its job, so the spring's just oscillating with nothing dampening it.
So those tires are just going
to the tyres effectively go in and out of contact with the road.
How long you've been wear?
So then you get blocks of wear around the tyre, and it looks kind of cool, but it ain't nice.
Horrible to be driving in. Yeah. Like, it's going to be vibrating the seat.
Yeah, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse. One of the sort of the other ones with tyre wear is, we call it sawtooth wear. I think on the Michelin sawtooth thing that you had, it was on there, shoulder step wear they've called it. So that's just a characteristic now of the way vehicles are set up. So vehicles are set up with steering and suspension geometry to be obviously as stable and safe on the road as possible, but there is also a matter of aerodynamic efficiency, and there comes a compromise sometimes. and especially on cars that don't get used that much, that often, the tyres don't get warm, they don't necessarily expand and fill their full shape. They'll start to wear on the inside edge because most vehicles have some amount of camber, which basically means that the top of the tyre leans into the body of the vehicle. They'll start to wear on the inside edge now. The only drawback to this isn't the safety concern. The only drawback to this is you start to get a noise which is almost like a wheel bearing type noise.
Okay.
Once you've had the two side by side enough, you can tell the difference, but most people will get a wheel bearing noise on their car at some point, having owned the car for a few years, and then they might get it fixed, and then they'll hear a similar noise again and think, that was a wheel bearing, last time it was the tyres. And it's quite common. So the only real solution to that is rotating the tyres regularly front to rear if you have a vehicle with the same size tyres in the front and rear.
Are there a lot of vehicles these days that don't have the same size?
Yeah, most rear-wheel drive vehicles have bigger tyres on the back. Some of the RS models have bigger tyres on the front. So, yeah. Not diameter, width.
Yeah. That's a pain.
So, and before that, if you had, most tyres now have outside edges and inside edges, or they're rotational. Before the...
Yeah, make sure. And I've had, I mean, that's been years that we've had rotational tyres. I've had a situation years ago, where whoever put the tires on put them on the wrong rotation. I'm driving and it's like, I'm gonna die. Something's wrong with these tires. It was a death drive.
I mean, sometimes because it's the inside edge that wears, you could flip the tire on the rim and put the inside to the outside. The problem with doing that is most tires these days have an outside and inside edge, so once it's worn out, it's worn out. So you can put it onto the front. It's usually the rear that this will happen to, and that's because most people, unfortunately for the planet, most people driving a car are driving a car on their own. There's no one in the back. Right. Suspension and geometry setups are designed for full tank of fuel, 3 or 4 passengers, and luggage. So at that point, the camber on the tyre that's lent in at the top, as the weight is increased on the suspension, the tyre straightens out perpendicular, more so to the road. So more of the tyre comes into more of contact with the road. So that's one of the problems, and it's normally the rear that this happens. It doesn't, not to say that it doesn't happen on the front. 90% of the time it's on the rear. There's not much you can do about it. You can put your suspension geometry out of spec, but then the car's not going to drive right. And the other ones will wear out, the tyre will wear out some other way. So that's just one of the ones to point out to people. But
basic tire life, are we thinking 2-3 years? I mean, I know some parts of the world people drive the same set of tires for forever.
Yeah, it's in the UK. It was common for, apart from the front wheel drive diesels that we used to get in VW, you get cars, we didn't even check tyre dates. Tyres would be 10, 12 years old. Especially on the back ends. So we never checked them, and the roads are always cold, they're wet, so there's less friction and resistance, so they don't wear out as quick. Like I say, the front wheel drive diesel engines, which have big heavy diesels, and don't forget VW and Avis put their engine way forward. So there's a lot of weight on those front tyres. Diesels are very torquey, so they wear the tyres out quite easily, and that was front tyres all the time. But we have tyres 10, 12 years old now in a climate like ours. 5 years is absolutely pushing it.
Thoughts on used tires? Would you buy them?
No.
Never. No. I see them at all the tire shops.
Not unless you're painting them to put them in a playground or something. I wouldn't buy them.
Anecdotally, do you think there's quite a market for them?
I know for a fact that there is.
I'm always shocked when I see people, and when I see the used tires there, and I'm always like, who's buying these?
Yeah, lots of the tires that get changed here. Let's say you've got a car, you've had a puncture on it, and one of them's worn out. You might change all 4.
Right.
So that those 4 that you change, 2 of them might actually still be okay. So those ones get exported to Africa. Okay. A lot of them go to Africa, nations in Africa, and get put back on the road in Africa, where there's less legislation and also less choice for them to buy branded tyres. So getting a used Continental tyre here is better than the option you have there. And so I've dealt with people that do that for a living, and they'll come and buy all used tyres all the time.
Retreads?
Not on anything passenger. Commercial vehicles.
I see them on a lot of commercial things, but no one's doing this for passenger vehicles?
No, there's not sufficient material there in the tyre to do that. There are factories that will literally delaminate the tread and put you a new tread on, but that's if you live near one and it's here, that the cost would just be more than buying a new tire.
We don't want one of those anyway. Just
No.
get tired. I always, it's funny because I put Pearlies on my vehicle. Great value.
Yeah.
And people will say, "What do you got?" I said, "These tires work."
Blasted around as well.
Yeah, they give me a great lifespan, and like anything, like we've been saying here, we're in the UAE. It's warm. I get 3 years out of my tires.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter what tire I put on my vehicle. It's kind of like batteries. They all last the same.
Yeah.
And after about 3 years, I noticed a little bit of drifting around a corner. Sure. And I was like, okay, well, or first rain and you're going around and you notice a little slippage. It's like, okay, tires need to be done here again.
Yeah.
And away we go. And I've been really happy with Pearly. I know you were working over there with the folks at one point. And I thought, well, let's give these things a try.
One of the things to remember with a branded tyre that's the OE, so the original equipment for the vehicle, is that tyre was designed with that vehicle and application in mind. So there's always a massive, massive benefit, not just the brand.
Yeah. My problem was I couldn't get the tires.
Yeah.
They weren't even available at the dealer.
Yeah.
So,
and this happens.
Yeah.
So no one has the ability, finances, or bad business sense to stockpile 4 million tyres for an old Wrangler because they go out of date.
Yeah, exactly.
They've got a shelf life. So when you buy cheaper tyres, let's say, when you buy some of these alternatives that come out of countries like China and places like that.
And let's be honest, the Pearlies are a cheaper tire.
Yeah. But when you do that, those tyres aren't built with anything other than the size in mind. They're just made to a size. They're not built thinking, right, we're going to make this tyre because it's going to be on a Wrangler in the desert. That's not what they do. They make them to a size. Now, a lot of the cheaper tyres come out of factories which are also making the expensive tyres, and they share patterns, they share a lot of materials, everything. So you can find that they're good. But I mean, the best example is if somebody said to you, okay, I want to put tyres on my car, and they gave you the option of Dunlop or Sumitomo. Most people, if they're told to pick the best tyre, would pick the Dunlop tyre. Yeah. Sumitomo Rubber Company make Dunlop tyres.
There you go. Right.
So, but the brand name makes people go.
Yeah.
So there is a bit like buying a handbag. Yeah. It's got a name to it, so you'll pay silly money for it. It's just a piece of leather with a hole in the middle and a zip on the top, but it's got a Louis Vuitton's name on it, so you're going to pay more for it. It's the same with tyres. You sometimes pay more. But one thing to remember is, when, in your example, when Chrysler decided, right, okay, let's make a new Wrangler, who's going to put the tyres on it? Right, let's go to Goodyear and ask them to make a tyre for this car, give them all the specs, give them some wheels, give them some cars, and let them go and test them. And they'll test for 2-3 months and they'll say, okay, here's your tyre. Yeah. And that's how it goes. And they'll want a certain amount of life in the tyres. They won't want them wearing out too quickly. They won't want them wearing out too slowly because they need to be changing them and making money out of it. So there's a lot of things go into making a tyre. But the cheaper options don't have that. They just copy. Yeah. So there is a benefit in cost. But when you're getting 3 years out of them in the climate we're in, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You probably wouldn't get any longer out of a branded one.
But I think that's a valid point. Just to remember that the branded tires, they've done the research. The tires that are part of the vehicle, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. So when you buy a non-branded tire, it's almost a cost thing. Yeah, they're going to work, but remember that they don't have necessarily that research.
I won't mention the type of tire or the make of tire it was, but we used to fit this cheaper type of tire quite a lot. And on the Toyota Land Cruiser Prado, we could not fit them because they used to vibrate. Yeah. They had the same on the sidewall, same temperature rating, load index, same speed rating, same size, everything. Yeah. But whenever you fitted them on, they'd vibrate. Yeah. So
something in the design,
something there that's just and that happens. That's just one of those things. So then the customers will come back and we'd have to let them pay the difference to then go and get another set of tyres, and then we'd send those back to the factory. Yeah. And nothing ever changed. Yeah. They're selling millions of these tyres every day. They don't care
it's like
if I send them 20 tyres every month because I've fitted them to Prados and they're vibrating. They just don't care.
But, keep that in mind. Have your conversations. Talk to people in your car groups and talk to your garage. Listen to your mechanic.
When you're sat in your car driving it, the only thing that's keeping you on the road is the tyres. Not the steering wheel. The steering wheel doesn't work without tyres. Not your brakes. They don't work without tyres. Not your engine. That doesn't work without tyres. It's just your tyres. And if you think that that's just an exaggeration of someone that's trying to sell you tyres, I don't want to sell you tyres. Come to me. I will take your tyres off, and you go and drive the car without tyres on it, just with your rims.
So the message is: think twice. Invest in the rubber.
Just have some form of tyres on your car, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Glenn, you know what? This has been another great podcast. Glenn Power, PowerWorks Garage. We have been talking cars. It's been a lot of fun. We'll do it all again really, really soon. Reach out to Glenn if you got any questions, by the way. You can fire those through to 100.3 FM. Fire them through on the WhatsApp. Fire them through on the text line. Glenn Power, PowerWorks Garage. Google. You'll find him. He's on Instagram. Lots of great images coming up on Instagram. Get in touch. Have a chat. Look forward to doing this again real soon. Glenn, thank you very much.
Thank you.